PRV, pressure relief valve. Now this is exactly as it says, it's to relieve pressure from a system if it becomes over pressurized. Now you may hear us describe these when we are talking about your heating system and you've had pressure loss at some point, and we may say that the pressure relief valve would have activated. So these are inside a boiler, or you might find them very close to one of these, which is an expansion vessel, and I've done a video on expansion vessels already. So what these do, there's a preset pressure. Predominantly it's around about 3.5 bar that's inside a boiler, and what can happen is that your system heating water expands when it gets hot. So water expands when it gets hot, and what it needs is an expansion vessel. It uses this to expand against. Now if the expansion vessel is too small for the property or the boiler or the system, or the expansion vessel has failed, non-existent, forgot to be added in, whatever the scenario, this is your second line of defense to hopefully stop other things popping, like joints, radiators, the boiler itself. So the pressure increases as the hot water, the heating water gets hotter, and when it gets up to about 3.5 bar, this pressure relief valve will open and then let the water escape very rapidly. Normally you'll find a bit of copper pipe that comes out of this, and it will go out the side of your house, and it's normally looped back against the wall. Now the reason it's looped against the wall in a funny little C shape is so that the water can hit the wall and cool down, because potentially the water could be very hot as well, depending on what your system's set on. So pressure relief valve releases the overcoming pressure that the system isn't designed to have in it, and that's around about 3.5 bar. Now what can happen, and one of the biggest things that can happen, is this pressure relief valve doesn't get activated daily, doesn't get activated yearly, and actually doesn't get activated unless one, an engineer tests it each year, or secondly it gets activated. Now just like an old tap that hasn't been used or turned for ages, that once this gets activated and it hasn't been used before for ages, there's a little rubber that's inside there, and it doesn't seep back down properly. Now this could be because the rubber's worn, it got stuck and it's been torn when it's opened up, or because your system water isn't the cleanest of water, grit and dirt's in there. So then what can happen, even if you get the expansion vessel fixed or whatever caused the pressure to rise very high, and that can be from you overfilling your system as well, it doesn't seep properly, and then it dribbles or drips water. So then what you then get is a continuous loss of pressure, and then that's another complaint that we get, that our system keeps losing pressure. So one of the things to look out for is this little copper pipe that goes outside, and see if water's dripping from it. A little trick, if you can reach it safely, is to put a water balloon or a balloon over it, and then see if it fills up. And if water ends up in the balloon, then you know that the PRV is letting by or leaking, and that's why your pressure loss is dropping. Now we should test these during our safety checks of your boiler. So before our service, you may have never experienced pressure loss, but as part of our checks, and this should be the check of every service engineer, we should test these and make sure they work. If after a service then you start losing pressure, it means that after testing this, it's now not seating properly and it's letting by. We've done nothing wrong by testing that. That's something that we need to do. If it's now letting by, that's a fault of this, and it will need to be replacing, which will incur additional costs. Now by not testing this and avoiding it dripping or leaking, we're then basically not checking the safety devices of your boiler. However, if we check these every year, and it's routinely checked every year, the likelihood of them not sealing is lessened massively than a service engineer not doing it for 6 years and then someone testing it and then it leaking. They're not very expensive, however they do require a revisit and a call out charge, but predominantly some of the boilers, they're in very difficult positions. So that's a pressure relief valve. predominantly explained for a heating system inside your boiler, and sometimes externally with one of these. You might find them attached at the bottom with a pressure gauge. There are other types of pressure and temperature relief valves on different parts of equipment, like your unvented cylinder, but we will talk about them another time. Have a great day. I'm Terry Matthews from Smart Heat Experts.